Since it is past 5:30, we'll start the meeting for the Board of Public Works for December 2nd. First, the call to order. We're missing one person, but we still have a quorum. Now, do we have any public appearances for non-agenda items? No, I think everybody's checked in, okay. Now I'll need a motion to approve the minutes from last time.
I'll move approval of the Board of Public Works November 18th minutes.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. The minutes are approved. All right, now report from the department. Mike?
I don't really have anything new. I think we're going to have a pretty good discussion about fish hatchery and a couple of the other projects, so I think we should just move on to the agenda.
Okay. All right, and now for the agenda, we'd like to move G up to the number 1 spot and B up to the number 2 spot. So do I have a motion to approve that change?
Motion.
Second?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. All right, we'll start the agenda with G, Resolution R-218-19. Could I have a motion to approve that resolution?
I'll move approval of resolution R-218-19.
Second? Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all right. We're starting with G on the backside, Resolution 218.
Okay, sounds good, thank you. And so, that being said, it's 5G, correct? And so
Yes.
we have some members of the public who would like to speak, I believe?
Correct. We have Mike Scarman from KL Engineering and Bill Balky, our staff.
Well, we can start with them since they're there, so.
And Mike just wants to read that. Just read that for Mike.
Okay, and then, well, I'll let them go first, and I'll read comments after people speak.
So Mike has a short kind of presentation and overview. Just, it's been a while since we've talked about fish hatchery and then what happened with the, where we're at with the bids. And then Bill will give a little bit of a update on the staff report. And then between the three of us, we can answer any questions that you might have at that point in time.
I got one.
Great.
Good to go?
Good to go.
So I have a couple slides that kind of the first half are just some general kind of recap about the project. On the second handful of slides are discussion of the bid evaluation. So this is intended to be concise, to be efficient with your time. If you have questions, we do have a lot more data available. We can very likely bring up more if you have those questions. So you do have a packet that is kind of the same information that's up on the screen as well. So kind of briefly, just kind of bring it back, the Fish Hatchery Road project, as you're familiar, has been ongoing since 2018. And just to kind of bring us back to where we're at now, that we've had a second bid letting. The first was August 13th. Council met later that month and ultimately with staff recommendation to reject that bid was supported. So in the couple months that have followed, we've been busy updating the plans and specs just for kind of the rebid. There have been changes. I'll describe those in a little bit. As well as some new elements to the design that were incorporated as a result of the schedule changes and some development that is taking place kind of within the project limits. So the second bid letting was held on October 28th. Since, in addition to that time, so we've been busy working on utility relocation planning, land acquisition, and material procurement. So the city of Fitchburg, city of Madison are partnering to buy the light poles and traffic signal poles, things of that nature. So all that's been kind of going in parallel in the last couple months as well. Just kind of a quick reminder, I won't necessarily read every one of these, but kind of a recap of what the project is. As you're familiar, the reconstruction limits are from the Beltline to County PD, approximately 1.5 miles. Kind of extrapolate that for context, it's about it's over 10 lane miles of road being reconstructed, so it's a lot. Within that 1.5 miles, 5 retaining walls being replaced. We're upgrading 8 intersections, upgrading for safety a lot of the median openings and driveways. doing a lot of ADA compliance, upgrades for sidewalk, extending the path to the Beltline, flood mitigation, utility upgrades, and kind of the more visible improvements to the public with the landscaping, streetscaping, decorative light poles, things like that. So kind of capturing what has changed since the first time this was bid in the summer. So there's a couple pretty fundamental differences, and I can touch base on kind of why, but the main things up here are the project initially was staged to be constructed in one season. So with the rejection of the first bid, there's a kind of a delay inherent to that, as well as some communication that we received as far as the aggressiveness of that schedule was potentially kind of a reason that some of the bids were very high. So now it's a 2-year project. So it's going to get built north of Traceway Drive to the Beltline in 2020, and then south there to County PD in 2021. So it's essentially 2 one-year projects back to back instead of all being done in one with some prep work and some carryover landscaping work. Another big change is the existing concrete pavement. Previously was described as you were not allowed to recycle that to be used as base course, based on some kind of documented history of concerns with that. So we've done a lot of kind of research and tightened up specifications that is now allowed in lower layers only, and done so with controls of the materials that make sure that that's quality material and being placed appropriately. We also did some redefining of several lump sum bid items, created some alternate items, just to provide better definition, more flexibility to the city to put in as much of those items as needed. And we also kind of had another chance to reassess the schedule, kind of put the letting for this project up against other WISDOT bid lettings in a manner where there weren't, I guess, fighting against each other. There wasn't schedule urgency created by 2 different bid lettings happening, I think, at times that didn't really afford the city the opportunity to kind of be the first in. So this time around, I think is a better timing. And I guess there's an additional element of added work. We have incorporated a segment of Traceway Drive, the extension to the east, that will kind of facilitate development that's under design with schedule for next year for breaking ground. Some of the background on why we did these changes, a lot of it is based on feedback from contractors, specifically the aggressiveness of the 1-year schedule was communicated as a very significant factor in some of the high bids, lack of competition, and the recycled materials we had heard a lot about. There was contractors definitely interested in pursuing the use of that material. And just timing overall, we bid it in the summer, so everybody was busy. We didn't have necessarily the same amount of attention we were able to get this fall when folks were a little more comfortable to kind of take a look at this and submit a bid. So I kind of mentioned the delay of having to rebid this. We intended to have some prep work start this fall, so we lost that, let's say, head start. So some of the splitting this up into 2 years was just inevitable because of that. And I kind of mentioned too, we redefined several items to just better describe the nature of the work for the contractors to bid on it, and created some in a category as alternates, so they could be considered, I'd say, variable or at the city's discretion to award individually versus all the items being awarded with the base bid. So I think maybe some people have seen this graphic. It's kind of small, but ultimately just want to touch on the current schedule. I mentioned it's 2 years, and I mentioned north of Traceway will be the 2020 segment, south of Traceway to PD will be the 2021. We do still intend to build it in halves, so I think in prior conversation, it's going to be a shift the traffic to one side. It's going to be a single lane each direction. So you can see on the map here, the yellow, blue will be, say, phase 1, phase 2 of the 2020 project, and the orange, green will be phase 1, phase 2 of the 2021. So it's being built in a similar fashion, but just kind of cut in half and done over 2 years. So kind of switch gears a little bit on the bid evaluation. I'm going to touch on just kind of real high-level stuff, but the list of bidders this time around, we got 4, and Integrity was the low bid. They were $20.3 million, ranging from Parisi at the high bid was $25.2 million. Just a couple points to compare to the first time around when we bid. We got 2 new bidders that did not pursue the first time, and 1 additional. Last time we had 3, this time we had 4. So we did get a little more of a competitive bid environment this time around. Kind of some other comparisons to the first bid. Initially, that low bid was Ignago at 22.8. Kind of mentioned Integrity's low bid this time around was 20.3, so it's a reduction of about $2.5 million, 11% for essentially the same project, but over the course of 2 years. And kind of a mention that the additional work we put in to add the Traceway connection and some carryover of the traffic control and things that will be there for 2 years instead of 1 actually added a little over 1%. So you could kind of argue some of that 11% is outweighed by stuff we added into the project. So, but in general, with the second bid, we did see cost reductions pretty much across all categories. So I think we felt like there was value in the exercise for sure, and the numbers bear that out. Kind of stepping into the comparison to how the most recent bid compared to our engineer's estimate. Mentioned the low bid is $20.3 million. Our engineer's estimate was 17.2, so it's about an 18% difference, or 3.1 million above what the engineer's estimate would have suggested. Compare that to last time, the first bid was 31% over estimate, about $5.4 million. I guess just a real quick understanding for what an engineer's estimate is, the way we come up with, say, a baseline of what industry trends would suggest, recent costs. They aren't necessarily to say what any one specific project will cost, but it'll say what projects have recently been costing. So we did have a conversation about whether we should adjust our factor for the engineer's estimate, but ultimately we decided to keep it kind of apples to apples, so what we got in August and what we got this fall, we could have a better idea of how to compare the two. So we essentially left the engineer's estimate strictly based on a pure assessment of bid history, and the reduction was 31% over down to 18% over. So ultimately, I think the reality is the environment is still competitive. The private sector is still generating a lot of work and taking a lot of the attention, and the workforce is significantly committed to private and public sector projects all over the state. Looking at some recent letters from the Wisconsin Department of Transportation, they've had a pretty distinct pattern of 1 or 2 bidders for projects, and I think the competitive environment is the most significant element of kind of what has led to some of the being above the engineer's estimate for this project in both lettings. I guess from here I was going to transfer over to the staff report, and suggest Bill is probably going to do a better job than I will, so let me pull this up. So this should also be in front of you, I think, or has been passed along.
I think
Staff report?
it should have been part of the materials in the packet. Was it not? Should have been. In your original packet.
So this document here you've seen, is that correct, on the screen here? All right, all right. So I'm going to break this discussion into 2 parts. The first part is going to be basing on the award of the construction, excuse me, and then I'll get into the requested budget amendment in the resolution. We are requesting that the board approve a contract award to Integrity Grading and Excavating in the amount of $20,550,392.33, which includes 3 alternate bid items for the alternate field office of $50,000, the alternate fiber conduits for $71,315, the alternate for temporary lighting for $51,250, and a portion of the high-friction pavement markings for $40,000. That would be for the award of contract to Integrity Grading and Excavating. We're also requesting in the pre-approval amount, an amount of $1,444,977 for contingency for the construction, bringing that total to the total. I don't have that number in front of me.
I think it is, that's the budget increase, sorry. I guess I'm not sure, it's the 20.5 plus the 1.4.
Right. So it would be for those two amounts for the approval on that. Where we came for the overall budget for the project was, what we had approved back in 2019 was a $23.16 million project, which included funding from Fitchburg debt, Fitchburg, TID, Dane County, and the city of Madison. And where we are right now is a total project cost of $29,333,000. And where that additional amount comes from is primarily from the construction cost increase of $3.1 million, but also has cost increases for some of the right-of-way acquisition that we've had, and the right-of-way and the some of the material procurements, such as the lighting and the traffic signals, and the for that project. The $23.1 million from the CIP to the $29.33 million increase is primarily borne by the city of Fitchburg due to the county eligible costs that they participate in. The county does not participate in street lighting. They don't participate in streetscaping. They don't participate in new development such as Traceway Drive or Pike Drive. So that's why the proportional cost going up is not borne by the county as well. The county previously had contributed about 35% of the total project costs, and under this new agreement with the county, they agreed verbally to give another $1 million to the city for this, which would bring their total in at about 35% as well. So proportionally, they're the same contribution. So what we're asking for is the budget amendment to increase the amount for the 2019 TID by $1,994,711 for additional funded borrowing. The capital projects budget increase to increase by $4,177,178, funded by $1.277966 million from the other jurisdictions, such as the county and the city of Madison, and an additional $2.899182 in increased additional borrowing from debt. So the total amount that the city council would like to authorize is $4,893,893 for additional debt. And we're here to answer questions regarding this.
Okay, we'll open it up then for questions, and Mr. Herbst, do you have a question?
Yes. What was the, with the repurposed concrete? We had a project on PD a number of years ago, and I see you smiling, that, I don't know if that was the cause, but we were very suspicious. It ended up being more of a drainage issue, but we think that salt and things got down there and we weren't draining. You assure me that we won't have that issue with reusing it in this case.
I don't know if you have kind of.
I don't think Bill was here yet when that happened. That predated him. But
Yeah, we looked really closely at the specification for how we were going to be using that and where it was going to be used in the project. And we felt that given the gradation and the type of concrete that's on Fish Hatchery Road, that it was a solid product to be used in the lower part of the grading. As I understand on McKee Road, it was used throughout the crushed aggregate, and so it was closer to the surface and more subject to solidifying and the heave thaw. So, yeah, we've looked at that, and we feel it's good in that lower layer.
But thank you for that evaluation. Second, what do you have in mind for the fiber optic conduits? Is that in the future, some provider would lease that conduit from us for running, or does the city have an intention of putting fiber in that for some other purpose?
Actually, we worked with our IT department, and we looked at our fiber outreach throughout the city, and that was one of the corridors we felt that we could use as a backbone to break off into other areas. And so it's possible that the city may be using an additional conduit, but we also have an additional one in there just for open leasing as a potential.
Okay. Third, our resolution here, I'm a little confused there. You're just accepting the bids for the fish hatchery. Am I wrong that there's more to this than we're approving an increase in the TID or TIF limit here also? I thought it was just to approve this project.
So the project's being paid for through the TID.
Okay,
So everything comes from the TID.
all right. So then,
Portion of.
all right. Then one last thing, Mike and Tracy, it showed up there, repair of water main or sewer. Do we have degrading ones on there, or are they reaching end of life? Or it seemed like I recall it was an alignment issue that we were moving those. Is that more of the case?
Tracy can probably talk to that, but
Yeah.
some of it was, the location was in conflict with other entities on the project
Okay.
as well.
So there's 3 items or 4 items. Some of it is in conflict with the new design, so we had to relocate the utilities. The second one is we have extensions for future developments such as Pike Drive and Traceway Drive, and then also foremost are citrus foods along there. There's laterals being extended in various areas for future developments or redevelopments along Fish Hatchery Road. The third one, maybe the larger issue, is the size of the water main at the north end of Fish Hatchery Road is 6-inch, and it's undersized for fire flow per our model. So it's one of the sections we've called out in our master plan to replace, so we'll be replacing that. And then we do have a section of sanitary sewer that's in rough shape. It's clay. We have a lot of infiltration, and we're going to replace that section as part of this project.
Okay. Thank you, Tracy.
You're welcome.
That's all I had, Chairman.
Okay, is there any other questions?
Yeah. List here. Does this include changes that were offered in the change request in the 7/22 Board of Public Works meeting? Do you remember there was an Amendment 3 that had a couple scope changes?
I would
Specifically to
suggest all of the work that was described in July would have been incorporated in that prior bid and this bid, so.
Okay. Did I see something in the slides about a snowplow?
That's in your budget summary?
Part of the capital improvements plan is adding the snowplow, because we'll be taking on the plowing responsibility.
So one plow for an additional 1.3 miles this way, 1.3 miles that way.
Well, and it's all the lane, yeah, every lane as well, and then plus whatever else we're taking on.
So, and I'm trying to recall some of the snowplow discussions, because when we took over PD, I think a new plow, and Dave, I don't know if you remember this, I think a new plow was bought at that point in time too, and it was thought, we'll just run the tandem plows through there and make it an efficient use. The snowplow, that's fine. Do we have budget in here out of the operating budget, or do we have current staff that would be allocated to actually use the new plow, or is that another hire on top of this?
That would be in the future, hopefully another hire.
Okay.
Just that one, you stay on top of, evaluate this year, the county is buying almost like a tow unit for towing, for plowing, that they can do 2 lanes at one time. And I'd like you to evaluate that, Bill, let us know what you hear about that. That might be something we might want to consider in the future, piece of equipment versus another hire.
Any other questions?
Yeah. Have we worked with Integrity
Yeah.
in the city of Fitchburg?
Yes.
They've done Nesbit and Verona Road,
Okay.
and they did the Nesbit roundabout.
Okay.
Okay, I'm happy with them.
Okay, I'm going to ask you questions about the finances, if I could. So just in terms of total, so the base bid here is 25 million, that's right? Okay, and now, are we just talking about Fitchburg numbers, or does this include what the county is putting in?
The $20.5 million figure is the overall construction part of it.
And they're in on that, the county's in on that.
The county's in on a percentage of that. yes.
And what percentage are they paying at this point?
About 35?
Okay,
About 30%.
great, okay.
That high, but
So, Dean County's in. Okay, good. And so, oh, I see, okay. So for Fitchburg's cost, because we got Madison's in for a smaller amount, it looks like.
Well, you have to add up all of Fitchburg's. There's TIF eligible.
Yep,
If you add all those up.
yep, I see that. So Dane County's in for 9 million, and then there's so we're just maybe gonna be under 20 million for the city, is that right?
Rough numbers, probably a little less, yeah.
Okay, but we, from the county, because, and I think we have to understand, they're keeping all the maintenance of this new road. We are only doing the plowing, correct?
Correct.
Because that was the deal we got to with the county. And so, we, typically then they'd pay 50% of the cost, because it's a shared road agreement. We're not taking over the road. I know Alder Clouder, who had served on this committee prior, was concerned about that. We all had concerns about it, but I think we're in a much better place as far as that. And we're confident that TID can absorb the 20 million, our cost. Is that right?
That's a discussion we had with Misty.
Okay, okay.
Would you agree?
Pat's here, good, okay.
Yeah, I can address that briefly. The plan is that the TID would absorb all of the TID-eligible expenditures up there. Not the entire roadway is TID-eligible because it's not within the TID,
Right.
but a good percent of it is. As a matter of fact, this first phase that Mike showed you up there, the 2020 phase, given the development that's already in the ground out there, that is paying for the 2020 phase. So Mike Zimmerman's working real hard, as the rest of us are, trying to get additional projects that'll pay for the future phases. We do have a project that's been before Plan Commission, very large project at the Traceway intersection that could put a nice dent in the 2021 costs too. So we're looking good. I'm not making any promises, but we're heading in the right direction.
And then, is that related to the juice factory?
That is, the
Okay,
juice
great.
plant, yep.
Okay, that's a new development, that's good, okay.
That's the reason why we're extending Traceway Drive at this point in time and signalizing that is that's going to be a, pretty major development there.
And Pat, for the committee members, and we want to do this for finance and council too, Dane County, we're going to be 50-50 with them, but some of these costs that we have are not eligible. So you look at the project as a whole, you know, for instance, the retaining wall, you know, they're not gonna pay for the retaining wall. It's a new addition that we put on. They're not gonna pay for community-sensitive design. They're not gonna pay for our sewer and water.
Yeah, the utilities are probably the largest cost, and Tracy could probably speak to that better, but the utilities are, you know, a cost that, you know, we have separate budgets for and separate capital budgets for, and it just makes sense when you're tearing up the road to take care of these projects at this point in time. And a lot of them are in a state of disrepair currently.
And if we took out, if we went to the eligible cost, where are we in terms of percentage? We're 50-50 at least. If we take out, if we look at what's eligible for Dane County to pay for.
Oh, yeah, with what the county deems as eligible cost is basically curb to curb.
Yep.
We're at 50-50
Okay.
on that.
So I see they're up to almost $9 million, and I remember meeting with, at the time, our county board supervisor, Jenny Dye, who showed great leadership on this. I think we were talking at that time like 3 or 4 million, but we've sort of, you know, the credit to the county executive's office and to the executive and to Jenny, executive at Parisi, they've, you know, they want to be part of it.
Yeah, and also Pam Dunphy, who's
Pam,
the engineer on this project. And, yeah, the county's really stepped up, and the future maintenance is the big thing.
Yep.
And the county had to approve us allowing recycle as well, because they do have the maintenance of the road, so they were involved with that decision-making as well.
Yeah.
So just so everyone understands the finances.
And we'll actually take over plowing in 2021. And it was mentioned earlier that we're going to get another plow. The plow isn't just for Fish Hatchery Road, but that's the same time we take over the town of Madison. So we'll have the Novation campus and all the new roads we're building. I think we have about, what, 1.5 miles of new road under construction this year.
Yep.
And that's in Uptown, as well as the area connecting Sain and Lacey, as well as the other subdivisions. So every year we get more and more road.
Okay, is there any other discussion?
I just have one comment. This document with the allocation of the money in it didn't make it into the packet.
It didn't, I see
I
that.
wonder if you could send that to us.
Yeah, we'll make sure you get that to you.
Thank you.
And then just, is 7% the normal contingency on a project this size?
Mike would be able to answer that.
I think it's within the range of, it's kind of just a gut feel type of thing.
Okay.
We have a lot of bid items that cover the work, so the 7%, you probably could argue 5 to 10 is reasonable. So I think 7 was the judgment.
Okay.
Okay, so then we'll move on. Thank you so much for your presentation, guys. And then also here, and he lists that he is wanting to register and wanting to speak, is Thor Wick from Integrity Grading and Excavating. Did you want to speak, or you just,
We're here.
I don't need to speak, I guess I'm here if there's any questions. We've done some work for you guys in the past over the few years, and really have a good relationship. And, you know, we look forward to working with you guys. I know this is one of the largest projects you've ever had in the city, so.
Actually, I do have one quick question
Yeah.
for you, if you want to come up to the microphone. As far as using the current pavement to put under as a base, have you guys done a project like that before? Have you run into any specific issues that either we need to think about or were part of the project that you want to call attention to?
Yes, we have used that many times. In fact, we've used it just down the road on Verona Road, on both Phase 2 and 3, as well as interstate projects, other municipal projects around the state. And no real concerns. I mean, I think the city and the designer, you guys have done a good job identifying, keeping it lower. We've used it throughout lower, upper, never had problems personally. You know, we're here to work with you guys how you want it, but I don't see any concern.
All right, thank you.
From a construction contractor's point of view, what's your biggest challenge on this project? Or what do you fear? What's going to
I
have you in
guess
front of us again asking?
they kind of highlighted it. I mean, losing the ability to do some prep work the fall of this year. Just it's a weather game, you know. Just hope for a good spring.
Okay.
But as far as some of the redesign and respecking that took place from round 1 to round 2, it really covered a lot of bases that I feel it's a good plan set, it's a good schedule, it's a good idea. So I think it's very doable.
One thing we'd ask, there's always gonna be surprises. I don't think we've ever done a project in the city without some surprise, and if it does come up, raise the issue right away. Bad news doesn't get better with time, and, we'd like to assess the situation rather than decisions made and we've moved on and then we're getting beat up because things got out of hand. So, timeliness is of the essence.
Yep, no, agreed. We've been on both sides of that as well, and, these big projects bring them up soon and work together with some value engineering to try to keep the impacts to the schedule and the budget to a minimum and keep everything going, so, absolutely.
The last thing I'd add, continue to pay good attention to the safety of your workers, when you're splitting this. The last thing we want is heaven forbid, a fatality, while we're doing something to improve the safety so please make sure that remains a focus of your crews.
Yes, absolutely. We take safety very seriously. I mean, we have a full-time safety manager on staff that gets around to the jobs every few days just to make sure everything's on the up and up, so.
Okay, hey, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we have everybody except we have a statement from Michael Zimmerman, who is our Economic Development Director, and he wishes to register, and he has a series of comments that he would like me to read, which I will read. Fish Hatchery Road reconstruction is important infrastructure investment and a catalyst for our redevelopment, infill development efforts. Staff is having possible conversations with landowners, businesses, and developers about various development priorities that will transform this quarry to a benefit for Fitchburg. So that is signed, Mike Zimmerman, the city's Director of Economic Development. Okay then, and we'll go into discussion and a vote. Any more discussion on the overall project? Being none then, we'll go into a vote. We'll do a roll call or?
Do a roll call.
Roll call. All in favor indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, by say nay. Ayes have it, that passes. Thanks, guys. Okay, now I'm told we're on to 5B, and we're gonna do I'll entertain a motion for approval of Resolution R 211-19, authorizing the stormwater rates for 2020. Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve Resolution R-211-19.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. Motion by Scott, second by Gronetsky, and we'll go to our director for discussion.
So we have a representative from Rupert Milky who did the stormwater rate study here that'll kind of give a little synopsis. And then, again, he can answer questions, and myself and Claudia, our environmental engineers, here as well to answer questions after the brief presentation.
Hello, everyone. I'll walk you through a couple of the key points from the report, and if you have any questions as we're going through, please ask. If you want more detail or less detail, feel free to let me know. But what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about the rates. It was last updated, the rates were last updated in 2013 for 2014, and a lot has changed since then in terms of number of users as well as the infrastructure needs. And so these rates needed to be updated, and there are three key components you can see on Table 1 with the rates. First is the citywide rate, which everyone pays. These are for services that benefit everyone, both rural and urban customers. And this is based on ERUs, or equivalent residential units. The second component is the urban service area, and that is for city customers only. And that is also based on ERUs. The third component, what's referred to as the intensity rate on the far right, that's, again, something only city customers pay. And this is for customers that have higher intensity or more concentrated impervious surface area on their lots. They tend to pay more because of this intensity rate. That's where the non-residential and multifamily properties tend to pay more. And so these three components make up the overall rates. And the rural customers only pay the first one, and the urban customers pay all three. Now, the proposed changes are to have the citywide rate go up by 17%, the intensity rate go up by 18%, and a large decrease, 58%, in the urban service area rate. And these changes are driven by changes in one of two things. That's simply the costs allocated to each of the categories and/or the number of ERUs to each of the categories. So it's either a case of the numerator changing or the denominator
Does
changing.
the cost get allocated? Is that what your people charge, Mike? Different accounts?
It's based on our budget, what we allocate to projects, like CIP projects in the urban area would count towards the urban costs, and those in the rural area would count towards the rural costs.
Yeah, absolutely. So Table 4 in your report goes over all the cost allocation in a lot of detail. I just want to draw your attention to a couple of things there. The total revenue requirement or total cost is 1.37 million estimated for 2020, and that's a 32% increase since 2013. It comes out to be about 4% per year, which is roughly in line with inflation and the growth of the community. So not an unreasonable growth. And then in terms of how the costs get allocated, you can see it's first split by rural and urban customers. So 6% goes to the rural customers, and then 94% goes to the urban customers. The 6% is a very small amount, but it still represents a pretty big increase over the last rate update. That's up about 25% since the last rate update. However, the number of rural customers has grown, so the rate increase won't be 25%. It'll only be 17% because of that growth. And then the urban intensity factor, that's the one that's going down by 58%. That's dropping because a bunch of the costs that were formerly allocated to urban intensity, to the urban service area, are now being allocated to the urban intensity. Plus, ERUs have gone up by over 30% in the city. So you're spreading out the costs a lot among a lot more customers. So that's why that rate is dropping. Urban intensity is getting more costs assigned to it. It did have some growth in the user base, but not enough to fully absorb all the costs. So that rate is going up as well. And then Table 2 shows the impact on a typical customer. And as I mentioned before, the rural customers only pay that citywide rate, so they'll see their rates go up 17%. It's a little bit more complicated with the urban customers because they pay those three components together. So your average single-family home, they're seeing two components go up and one component of the rate go down. It nets out to be a small decrease for them. For the non-residential customers, it really depends on what their intensity factor is, like how concentrated the impervious surface area is. The more concentrated it is, the more they'll pay for that intensity rate, and that will cause their rates to go up. But if their intensity rates are relatively low, the other costs will drive down their overall rates. So any questions so far on that?
Can you quickly describe the intensity rate, when, as you were, or maybe a little bit more in detail, when you were describing it, I'm sitting here thinking of, just the standard family, single family house. It's got the driveway, it's got maybe a little bit of the sidewalk. Other than that, it's and maybe like a patio. Do those sorts of things go into, is that kind of how the intensity rate is looked at, is those impervious surfaces?
Yes, and it's only for non-residential areas that they take a look at that.
Okay.
So your single-family homes are excluded.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, you bet. Any other questions? Okay, so just to make sure the rates were adequate for the next 5 years, I did a cash flow projection to see what the impact was. And as part of that, we built in the capital projects that are projected for the next 5 years, 2020 through 2024. And as you can see, at the totals here at the bottom are pretty substantial cash outflows. 1.1 million in 2020, 1.45 in 2021, 1.87 in 2022. And as you can see here, they're predominantly cash funded. So again, substantial cash outflows, which normally would be cause for concern, but what I noticed was that the utility has built up a substantial cash reserve, and so it can draw down on those cash reserves to be able to fund these projects. You can see that in Table 8, the 5-year cash flow analysis. You can see down here, the net cash flow is negative each of the first, well, all of the years, but especially the first 3 years. However, you're starting with a balance of $2.54 million in cash reserves. So I would recommend just that the utility and the board monitor these cash levels just to make sure they're okay, especially around 2022. But if they go close to this forecast, the cash reserves should be fine. Cash balance should be good. And the rest of the report, I took a look at the current ERU definition, and based on the data that city engineering provided, it looks like it's an adequate definition based on the average lot sizes in Fitchburg. And then I also took a look at the credit policy, the stormwater credit policy. It's very much in line with what your peers are doing, so I don't recommend any major changes. A few of the peers are charging evaluation fees, and given the large amount of work that goes into evaluating credit applications, I would recommend that the city consider adopting a fee, and then also requiring people who get credits or properties that get credit to submit evidence annually that they're keeping up these practices, rather than putting the burden on city engineering to do that. And I believe city engineering is working on a resolution for that. So that's it in a nutshell. Any questions on anything else I covered?
Just a general question. I think you're in the best position to answer it. How are our rates compared to, other cities with stormwater utilities?
Yeah, good question. They're very reasonable. I would have expected more growth in cost, honestly, given Fitchburg's growth. So I think you're in a good spot.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, being none then, we'll move into a vote on Resolution R211-19, authorizing the stormwater rates for 2020. All in favor, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed may say nay. And in the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. We are now on to entertaining a motion for Resolution R200-19, resolution to join the Green Tier Clean Waters Initiative. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Gronowski, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Scott, and we are in discussion.
Okay, I've got Claudia. Guy is gonna kind of discuss what the program's about and give you a little synopsis, and then if you have additional questions, we can answer those.
Okay? Okay, Claudia, the floor is yours.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Okay, there we go. So I was here to just give you an overview of Green Tier and what that's about. So currently, the participants are Dane County, their Lakes and Watershed Commission, the City of Madison, the City of Sun Prairie, NASICA, which is a nonprofit organization focusing on stormwater and erosion control, Hamburg and Viridian, which are the current industry partners, and the Department of Natural Resources at the state level. There are others who are not official members of the charter who also frequently attend. I go. There are also folks from DSPS, Military Affairs, and there are other contractors who have come in and out of the commission expressing interest in joining. So why the charter was formed? It was actually formed in 2006 to create a partnership between private industry and municipal governments with the goal of coming up with ways to do superior erosion control and performance. Challenges that they saw at the time included the Uniform Dwelling Code, which did not address site-specific erosion control concerns, and then poor erosion control performance on single-family sites, which is something that we still see today in the city of Fitchburg as well, but it's a regional concern as well. There were other drivers, including the Viridian, which in 2006, they were getting massive fines from the city of Madison. So those included, it's the state's largest builder, and they were getting on the order of a couple $100,000s per year in fines. So that was a big factor for them, and there was just a desire to do better than what's required by the regulations. So what municipalities get by becoming a member of the charter, we get superior environmental performance from the industry partners who are part of the charter. It's something that they commit to when they join the charter, is providing superior environmental protection. We also get one point of contact from Hamburg and Viridian, which means that 24/7, if we see an erosion control issue on one of their sites, we know exactly who to call. And that's actually a pretty big win for us, because a lot of times when you're out in the field, there might be no one on site to talk to. The person who is on site might not be the correct person because it's a subcontractor, and then there's foremans and developers. So really having one point of contact for all of Viridian sites or all of Hamburg sites is a pretty big win. Another thing that we get is a forum to discuss issues that developers and contractors are facing. The charter meets every 6 weeks, and they basically talk about problems that people are facing and then brainstorm potential solutions. They also brainstorm erosion control practices and how they might be improved. Another thing that we would get is expedited review of DNR permits. That would be a pretty big one. I was talking to Jeremy Belusek from Dane County, and he mentioned that a lot of his DNR permits are turned around within a couple of weeks. And I know that can often be months. There's one that I just followed up on today, and it went into the normal queue, and it's been in there for 4 months. So that might be a big win for us as well. And we also get improved erosion control practices. These are just a couple listed here, where the charter came up with guidance for these various practices, and then actually the DNR, the state adopted guidance at their level as well, based on research that the charter had done. So what do contractors get? The big thing that they get is no citations if they're following the charter. They also get a single point of contact, so if they're seeing problems in any municipality on a municipality site, they would have a single point of contact to work with. They get expedited review of permits as well, and they are able to claim status as a green tier company, which is something that they can use in their marketing. And it's definitely something that Viridian and Hamburg have been doing to show their environmental concerns. So that's what I had prepared. Does anyone have questions?
I do. Can you go back a couple of slides?
Yes.
What does superior environmental performance actually mean?
So, for example, one of the things that they do is they have, every year they're required to have a third-party auditor come in and look at their sites and give them recommendations on how they can improve their erosion control. Another thing that we see from them is they're required to do, they submit a it's what we call a virtual inspection every week, which means that every single-family home site, they take photos from 2 different vantage points showing that they are in compliance with erosion control. And that's not a regulatory requirement. That's something that they do as part of this charter.
And who's they?
They would be Viridian and Hamburg, which are the industry partners who are part of the charter. It's not everyone, it's just the members.
So it's just those 2 developers.
Yes, exactly.
And they're going to do extra work for municipalities that are part of the Green Tier Clean Waters Initiative.
Exactly.
Okay.
Unless other contractors could come on board and become a green tier member.
Okay.
Then they
Right,
would
so-
also have to do that.
Exactly.
I was
It's
a
not-
bit confused on this because I wasn't sure if this was extra work that city staff would have to be doing, and therefore Mike's got to dedicate
It's-
his.
It actually becomes a
Gracious.
reduction because really we're battling with especially single-family home sites.
Yep.
And if we can get them to do a better job, that takes up a lot of our time because it's just a lot of tracking down.
Right. So theoretically, with these virtual inspections, we would still have to review the virtual inspections, but that would be a lot less time looking at photographs than driving around and looking at sites. So that could be a win as well.
Okay. On the previous slide to this one, it said that Veridian was getting massive fines from the city of Madison. Does the city of Fitchburg have a ordinance
We do.
process? And if so, have we seen violations from Hamburg and or Veridian?
I don't know that we've had Hamburg in town, and Veridian, it's been before my time when they were here, so I couldn't comment to that.
Yeah, I did take a look at the last couple of years, and we issue on the order of 10 citations a year. I didn't take a look at exactly who we issued them to, but I don't believe we issued any to Veridian. And they're $250 a piece, so it's not like we'd be losing a big revenue stream or anything like that.
Yeah, I was just wondering if that was even something that we were paying attention to, or was it like we've got other things to worry about, therefore it's,
Right.
it's a problem, but we got other issues to worry about.
I think one thing that can happen with the city of Madison, the way that they have their citations structured, is that it escalates. So the first one costs less, and then the second one costs more, and it quickly escalates. So ours are always $250.
One thing to think about is I think Crescent Crossing is gonna be a Veridian development, if I'm not correct, so we will have Veridian in the future, so it could be a real benefit if they do a good job with their sites.
On the next slide. And so the improved erosion control practices, so members of the initiative are all doing these silt sockings, protection, tracking, terrace stabilization. Do we have any idea, or is it city policy on what terrace stabilization is and sounds like? And the reason I ask is out in Quarry Vista, we've got the rain gardens, and while I get the value of them, I think the actual practice of them has just kind of not been there. I think these hold on to water a little bit too long. Therefore, when you start to take a look at, maybe some higher density areas, to make sure that when they get complaints that, kids are playing in these things, they wind up putting snow fencing around it to keep people out. So
Right.
I think the practice actually maybe needs to take a look at, or some standards need to be put in place for how those things are put together. Is that
And
all?
for terrace stabilization, when they say terrace stabilization, they're actually talking specifically about just getting grass to grow on the terrace. They're not talking about
Okay.
terrace rain gardens.
Okay.
But we actually are, currently, that was something that industry brought up as a problem that they're facing, is that especially with our wet years, rain gardens, bioretention basins, infiltration basins, they haven't been working very well. So we're actually working on putting together guidance documents on how to appropriately build them, because a lot of times these problems can happen when they're being built and then they have to be rebuilt, and it's very costly.
Dig a hole and throw it on some clay isn't working for us very well, is it?
Right.
And I don't know if that's, never mind.
I think one thing they did poorly is they had the wrong seed mix, for one. They had tall plants that have a tendency in an urban area to look like weeds instead of look nice, so that would have been one thing they could have done better.
Okay. And then the next slide, I think I had one. Oh, actually, on the previous slide. So you mentioned expedited review of DNR permits. Is that on the city side? Is that on the developer side, or is it on both?
So this would be something that the municipalities get. So if we submit a permit to DNR, we would get an expedited review of that.
So, and you mentioned that there's been a few where we're sitting on them for months.
Yes.
And if that's leading to, and again, I don't know if that's leading to any sort of timeline adjustments or anything that needs to happen, or this is just all built in, but if there's anything that the city can do to expedite that, whether it's follow-up calls every day, every hour until the squeaky wheel gets the grease or whatever it happens to be. 4 months, just from the sounds of it, when you say
Right,
the
yeah.
expedited process, tends to sound a little bit horrible.
So currently, the one that I mentioned, that's 4 months, that is one where we do have time in our timeline.
Okay.
So we know a lot of times that this will take
Okay.
time, so we just submit them well in advance.
Can you give me your, hours for our staff, plus or minus, by having us be in this?
I think it's gonna be a positive as far as less, is that what you're asking? Like,
Is it
should
gonna
be
incur
less?
more hours for our staff or less?
I think it'll be less.
Okay,
Less
that's all I need
hours,
to hear.
because I'll be honest, when, the short time I've been here, it's been tracking from a lot of small development sites, not our bigger developments. It's been a tough fall, but if we can get that under control, that would save, I think, a lot of time. And, the key is with this is there's no cost, but we've got to get more contractors to sign up. So we have more than just Viridian and Hamburg. The key is once we get more, but there is no cost. And I think staff-wise, if there was a big staff cost, I wouldn't be in favor. So I don't see that as being an issue.
Okay, anybody else? Nope. Okay, then we can go into a vote. All in favor of authorizing the acceptance of the Green Tier Clear Waters Initiative, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed may say nay. That passes. We're now on item 5C, Resolution R 217-19, a resolution accepting subdivision improvements in the plat of First Edition to not North Stoner Prairie, Stoner Prairie. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Granetsky, second by Scott, and we'll go to our director for an explanation.
So this is, like you said, the Stoner Prairie addition. We've done our due diligence as far as inspection. They're down to minor punch list items, so it's ready to be accepted for public improvements. And if you look on page 2, there's a map kind of showing where it is. This is the one by the school near Seminole. So that's really all I have.
Okay, any questions? Okay, if there's not, then we will go into a vote. All in favor, please indicate so by saying aye.
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 Those opposed may say nay. In the opinion of the chair, that passes. I'm just taking notes. Okay, so then what we will do is go to item 5D, Resolution R 101-19. The chair will entertain a motion to approve a final resolution exercising police powers and levying special assessments for the 2018 water main improvements on Lacey Road in the city of Fitchburg, Wisconsin. Is there a motion?
I'll move approval.
Move approval by Herbst. Is there a second?
Second.
There is a second by Scott, and we'll get an explanation from the director.
This is the water main that was put in from basically Highway 14 to MM on Lacey Road. So it's a deferred assessment. I think there's only one property owner if you look at it. It came in within the 10% or under 10% of what was originally, so there's no additional hearing required. So I would recommend approval.
Is there any questions? Being none, we'll go into a vote. All in favor, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed may say nay. Ayes have it, it passes. We'll go and entertain a motion to approve Resolution R 103-19, final resolution exercising police powers and levying special assessments for the 2017 Lacey Road water main improvement, City of Fitchburg, Wisconsin. Is there,
I'll move to approve Resolution R-103-19.
there's a motion, is there a second?
Second that motion.
Motion by Scott, second by Herbst, and we'll get another explanation on this.
This was for utilities water main that was in front of Corey Vista on Lacey Road. Again, there was 4 affected properties. 2 were assessed and 2 have deferred assessments, so when they develop, it'll be assessed. The assessment will come due. Again, it's within the 10%, so no additional public hearing required, and I would recommend approval.
Any questions or discussion? Being none, we'll go into a vote. All in favor, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed may say nay. That passes. And then we will go to item 5F. This is a resolution R 102-19, exercising police powers and levying special assessments for the 2017 Lacey Road and Lacey Road Water and Sewer Improvements, City of Fitchburg, Wisconsin. Chair will entertain a motion at this time.
I'll move to approve resolution R-218, oh no, R-102-19.
Is there a second?
Second that motion?
Motion by Scott, second by Herbst, and we'll get an explanation from the director.
So this is for water and sewer, basically on Lacey Road from here to, now I get a look again. Jones Farm Drive, roughly in that area, just past there. So it's for water and sewer. Again, it was within 10% of what was presented at the public hearing. So there's no need for additional hearing, and I would recommend again for approval.
Okay, any questions or comments? Being none, then we'll go into a vote. All in favor, please indicate so by saying aye.
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 And those opposed? Ayes have it. In the opinion of the chair, that passes. And we have already done item 5G. And so we will go into announcements. The next Board of Public Works meeting will take place on December 16th, 2019 at 5:30 PM. Are there any other announcements?
I will not be here for that one.
I am out of town also, Mr. Chair.
So we may have an issue with the quorum, so Ann and
I'll
myself,
be
and
here.
we'll check with the other Dave Wilborn to see if he can make it, because we could have a quorum issue, otherwise we'll have to reschedule. Anything else?
We had a Lake Barney meeting this morning, well attended, went really well. We got the Village of Oregon to attend, just wanted to let you know that. And we have scheduled a couple other meetings, and I'll make sure that you guys get notification of when those meetings are.
Did I see that in the previous gentleman's presentation? It looked like there was a couple tens of thousands of dollars allocated over the next couple of years, and then a big pop in 2023, was it?
That's probably when, that could be, I'd have to look at the
Okay.
CIPs, but it could be when the Sub-Zero Stoner Prairie construction for that stormwater.
Okay.
We've got a study going on there that just got, we approved at the last meeting.
Okay.
And that would be the construction, I think, is the big blip, because that's one of the bigger stormwater projects we have.
Okay, I thought I saw it on the Lake Blarney line, but,
Lake Barney could have,
Barney, sorry.
it has 2 years of study and then a year of construction
Okay,
as
very
well,
good.
so that would be on the blip
yep, okay.
as well.
Okay, item number 7 is adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll move to adjourn.
Alder Scott moves to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second that motion?
There is a second. It's non-debatable. All in favor of adjournment indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? In the opinion of the chairs, the ayes have it, and we are in adjournment. Thank you.